Alright guys, Rich here from the RCNetwork.com, and this is build update number 1 on my brand new Xpresso K1 rear-wheel drive 1/10 scale mid-motor chassis kit. Now this thing came as a quick surprise here at the RC Network. Got this in and tried to start building it. Unfortunately, the owner's manual wasn't quite ready to be released yet, so had to wait just a few days to actually get the build started. But as you can see, they did release the owner's manual, was able to print it out and get started on this pretty cool little kit car. Now, the K1 chassis is very, very small. This thing is about 9 inches in length and just about 4.5 inches in width. It is super small, and just to compare the two size differences, let's go ahead and take a look at this K1 car versus a Sakura D4 chassis. Right off, you can see absolutely the D4 up here is quite longer. Now, this is a standard 1/10 scale drift car. This is a rear-wheel drive, and you can see here the K1 very, very small. And I mean, with that rear kind of diffuser on the Sakura, I mean, gosh, this thing is quite a bit smaller overall and width-wise as well. So it does take a special body and special wheels and tires for this K1 kit, but what's really cool about this thing is you can use all standard 1/10 scale electronics in here. No 380 size motors or any weird size servos. You can pretty much go with standard stuff in this K1 car. To build the K1 chassis, you will need a few tools for the kit. You'll need a 2.0 and a 1.5 hex wrench. You'll need some cutoff shears for cutting parts off of trees, and just an X-Acto knife just to fine-tune those parts to cut the tangs off. A 4mm turnbuckle wrench definitely helps out, and a couple of specialty tools that you don't really need for the build, but it makes it a little bit easier, are some shock shaft pliers and some spring separators for the servo saver. As far as fluids for the build, it does come with 500 CST shock weight oil and 3000 CST diff oil. You will need a couple of extra things like CA glue to glue the pulley together. You'll need some thread lock because there is quite a bit of aluminum in this rig. And what I also like to add is just some O-ring grease for not only your shock O-rings, but also the differential O-rings. As far as parts that were left over during the build, we do have some body post risers right here, also an antenna tube that wasn't mentioned in the owner's manual. A couple of blocks here that I'm not sure what they are, some servo horns that aren't needed in the build, several different rod ends that are just extras. You do have a couple of battery extenders if you plan to run a standard stick pack, but I have mine set up for a shorty. Also, these pieces that were not mentioned in the manual, have no clue what they are. And if you look in the far tray here, we have lots of extra hardware, body clips, extra C-clips, lots of nice things that is included in the kit. And you do have a differential locker, but the owner's manual never specified what it was for, but I would assume it is for drifting. Now on to the illustrious owner's manual. Now, I totally understand. I was able to get a pre-release kit of the Xpresso K1, and the owner's manual wasn't quite available yet. Now, if you checked out my unboxing, it wasn't included in the box, and I'll have that link right up above there so you can check out the unboxing. But I was able to print this out about a week later after I got the kit, and I've got to say, overall, the owner's manual is quite detailed and very, very well drawn up. However, it is probably one of the worst owner's manuals I have seen in a long time. There is quite a few things that are missing in the owner's manual, including specific instructions on how to assemble things. There's parts that are missing throughout the owner's manual that just were not specified. It was a complete train wreck, to say the least. So right here, we're looking at the differential and what is set up for, but it doesn't specify the touring versus the drift setup. Now, it does have a locker pictured here, but doesn't ever mention the locker setup. This is specifically for a fluid-filled geared differential. Now, if we keep on going here, I'll try and point out some of the things that just didn't make sense in my owner's manual. Maybe you will see different in a future update. Now these spacers right here, I was missing 4 of these spacers. These go on the underside of the carbon fiber arms onto the chassis. I only had 4, so I had to makeshift ones for my kit. Right here on the rear of my kit, I was able to use the red ones that were included. But if you look on the front, I have a silver one, I have an orange one that's stacked up, and also a blue one on this side, and then finally another silver one up here. So was able to makeshift it up with some parts I had here at the RCNetwork. So once again, these were missing in my kit. On over to the next page here. Putting in the top shaft, which is basically the shaft that holds the spur gear on, and it was very confusing, to say the least, on how to get that top shaft into it. You basically have to dive into it, set it in, and then back it back in, where the instructions just show to slide it straight in. A little bit confusing, but it was early in the morning when I was installing that portion. Right here, it would be nice if they listed what hole out of the 56 holes on the shock tower that the shock post goes into. Just a nice feature, and I know that they have a setup guide coming out soon, but give us a stock setup in the owner's manual. Now, in the rear CVDs, they were already pre-assembled, but it gave you instructions on how to assemble, which I understand. Right here, they do specify a specific screw, but they don't tell you what size it is. So right here it says number 3, and here's number 3, but they don't show you a picture of it or 1-to-1 or what size screw it is. I figured out it was just a M3 by 6 millimeter cap head screw, or round head screw is what they're calling it. Now on here, there were several issues with the turnbuckles, and I've got to say, I've never assembled so many turnbuckles in my life on one vehicle. There's approximately 6 turnbuckle setups for each side here. So you have 6 in the front, 6 in the rear. It is a pain, and they didn't specify any sizing of the turnbuckles. It just has a question mark right there of what size these are. Thank God they're 1-to-1 dimensions, but with that, they also don't specify the size between the rod ends, so you have to guess. It doesn't really specify it, and once I got it together, I had to spend quite a few minutes just getting everything set up as far as camber, caster, everything else. So kind of a bummer there. On over here to this side, they don't really specify what size screws these are. I figured out they were 3 millimeter by 8 millimeter. So just, word to the wise on those two. There's nothing specifying in the 1-to-1 dimension, but I did notice that my printed out 8.5 by 11 sheets got cut off a little bit. So I believe they are specified down here at the bottom. Going on to here, this was the most frustrating part of the build, but Xpresso has come out with a couple of videos that did help me with this, so thank God for that. But they go straight from assembling the front bulkhead and front blocks and turnbuckles to a fully assembled servo and servo saver that is flipped upside down. There's no instructions on how to assemble this. You'll have to follow that video, and I'll try and have that down in the video description. There's also no specification of course, what size turnbuckles, what turnbuckle ends, anything else in here. Also, how to assemble the servo saver with all of those tiny little springs. So keep that in mind on your build. Flipping over here to some other issues that I saw, there's no specification on what size of screw this is. It is a 3x20, I figured out. Down here, they specify you need 4 3x6s, but this is a 3x8. That is a 3x6. And if you keep going here, they don't really specify the pinion gear pitch, but it is a 64 pitch pinion that you'll need for the kit that is not included. Keeping on here to the front bumper assembly, everything was pretty decent on this portion, but then finally the straw that broke the camel's back was the shock assembly. Now, once again, they do have a video that specifies some of the information you'll need, but I had to guess on a certain portion of this. Now, the shock assembly is pretty much drawn out here very nicely, but they don't specify what springs go with what shock. So I figured it out from the video. Blue is the rear, white is the front. but they give you a 1-hole piston and a 2-hole piston in the kit. They don't specify it, and in the video they specified the wrong items. They called it a 3.8 millimeter ball stud, but unfortunately they don't. I went with 1 hole in the front, 2 hole in the rear. We'll see if that works out for my install. All right, well, that was about 6 minutes of me talking about the manual. Now let's actually talk about the kit. Now, the positive portion of this kit is it is damn cool. Everything that went into this kit was really, really nice overall. Carbon fiber everywhere. You have aluminum, anodized red bits and pieces everywhere. It just looks very, very nice. And overall, the assembly went pretty well. Aside from the hiccups in the owner's manual and the missing portions of the owner's manual, everything else on this kit assembled very nicely. It was very well thought out, and a lot of the new kind of innovations on this thing are pretty cool, including what was really shocking were the carbon fiber A-arms you'll see right here. I mean, very, very trick design. I mean, I haven't seen that before. They're kind of writing on these kind of ball studs that go in, and I mean, just a really, really cool design overall. The huge rear differential right there, I mean, that is a standard 110 scale differential. There's nothing small about this car except for the overall size. They've kind of just shrunk down everything that is 110 scale onto a smaller chassis, which is pretty cool. Now, what's really, really nice about this design, pretty much the rear of it is like a standard rear wheel drive drift car, but the front, they've kind of shoved the steering servo way up here in the front. Now, the steering servo does not come with the kit. I installed this hack gear servo. This is a shorty servo from Yeah Racing. This is a coreless digital servo, steel gears, and it is a low profile one, like I said. So I don't believe you need a low profile, but you'll see here, this one goes right up to the top of the bulkhead. If you did go with a standard one, it's going to stick over quite a bit. You may have issues with certain bodies. But right here, this servo, pretty nice. It ranges right at 7 kilograms, so however that translates into ounce inches, but it transmits at 0.08 seconds at 6 volts. So pretty quick servo overall. I'll have a link of this down to the video description as well. But it doesn't come with the kit. Typically kits do not, but you have to install this because most of the front bulkhead is assembled around that servo, so keep that in mind. Now, other things that are nice, you do have the ability to install either a servo or a shorty battery or a standard stick pack. I like shorties. It makes sense on this car because it is smaller. You don't want this thing sticking way out. It may help with counterbalance maybe, but overall, I think the shorty packs is the way to go on this. Now, 64 pitch gearing was kind of a bummer because I have lots and lots of 48 pitch stuff. I may be able to switch that out later on down the road. We'll have to see on that. But over here, the front shocks are almost completely stood up on end. I mean, they're straight up, and these things are really, really smooth, surprisingly. I mean, they are plastic bodied threaded shocks, but all the bits and pieces are aluminum, which is pretty nice. Now, like I said, the turnbuckles are somewhat of a pain. You have turnbuckles veering off on either side here for kind of like an upper A-arm, and then another turnbuckle here for the steering. On the rear, you have a turnbuckle that adjusts right here, but you also have 2 other turnbuckles here as an upper A-arm. So kind of a unique design, and they were definitely hard to install and definitely calibrate to the right spec that I wanted. So once I have wheels and tires, I'll be able to set all of the different angles. Now, I haven't installed the motor yet. It does take a standard 540 size motor, so I'll be installing that here soon. And then a very small space in here for an ESC and then also the receiver. You do have a little plate up here for the gyro. There's a fixed plate, so that's pretty nice and very, very nice. Well, guys, that is my quick little build update 1 on my Xpresso K1 K-Car kit chassis. This thing is pretty cool. Now, aside from the owner's manual hiccups, I think this is going to be a pretty cool build. Can't wait to get the body going, get the wheels and tires, the electronics in it, and show you a final product in the end. Well, guys, that's it for now. If you have any comments or questions about this car, please feel free to post it on down below. And as always, thumbs up and subscribe. That's it for now, guys. Over and out.